So thank you so much for joining us here today. It's a pleasure to have everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Share. So hopefully you can see my screen. Yeah. All right. So we're the American Muslim Community Foundation, AMCF. So again, honor for you to be with us today. We're talking about today, Decade of Impact, the Rabata story and the power of Muslim women leading together. On today's agenda is just a brief welcome, intro to AMCF and the Women's Giving Circle, speaker information, upcoming events, a presentation, and a huge thank you for joining us. Just a little bit about AMCF. Our vision is leading sustainable and strategic Muslim philanthropy for today and future generations. Our mission is cultivating donor giving and diversifying funding to advance charitable causes. Our core values are sacred, strategic, sustainable, collaborative, diverse, inclusive, and with integrity. And just a little bit about AMCF. We were founded in 2016. We're the only U.S. organization dedicated to American Muslim philanthropy. Since that time, we have distributed $25 million to over 1,000 nonprofits. Just this Ramadan in 2025, $2 million was distributed to nonprofits through AMCF. Currently, we manage about $8 million in assets, including 240 donor advised funds and 30 endowments, alhamdulillah. Our impact, again, DAFs, or donor advised funds, 240, endowments over 30, funding 25 million, and assets 8 million. Our core programs are for donors and nonprofits, so basically everybody. We have donor advised funds, we have giving circles, of which this is a part. We have endowments, and we also have leadership development. Again, this is part of that. Leadership and action. We have national committees serving the community. We run the National Muslim Plan Giving Council, the Investment Committee, as well as the National Muslim Endowment Council. We also moderate the AFP, the Association for Fundraising Professionals. They are Muslim affinity groups, which are open to anyone and globally, and we moderate those. They meet quarterly. For any information, just reach out to Giving Circles at amuslimcf.org. That's me, and I will direct you to the right person, or I'll chat with you myself. We also have a great nonprofit resource center that my colleagues have gathered a bunch of really excellent materials for nonprofits. So if you're involved in that space or you have friends, colleagues, please share them out. This is all free educational stuff, no charge. And then the Muslim Women's Giving Circle, our host today. What is our purpose? Well, to harness the power of American Muslim women through collective giving, combine and democratize our giving, amplify women-focused nonprofits, support Muslim women in leadership, and provide seamless donations to organizations chosen by our members. So how does it work? Well, you join, become a member with a donation of as little as $5 a month. You become a voting member with a donation of $35 a month, which is about $420 a year. Members can then nominate an eligible nonprofit, an eligible organization for funding. Preferences for nonprofits serving or led by American Muslim women. Voting, our voting members then determine the finalists and the top 3 organizations that will be funded in each cycle. So this cycle we just concluded, we raised close to a little under $15,000. Not a lot, but it will be distributed in unrestricted funds or in the form of an endowment to our 3 finalists, which we're working on right now. So as I mentioned, $55,000 has been collectively raised and distributed over the past 4 years. It's been distributed to 9 nonprofits with an asterisk. 3 of those nonprofits will get that money this year. So trying to put in all the numbers together. We're currently finishing the 2025 cycle. And a huge thank you to our generous members, because this is a collective action. It's not me or Shazeen or any but one person. This is a collective action. We pool our money, pool our resources, and really amplify and support everybody in the community. In our last Giving Circle cycle, our grantees were the Muslim Legal Fund of America. They received $7,500. All of Community Services, serving the elders of our community, $4,500. And Pillars of Peace, they operate a domestic violence shelter in New York City. So an honor to have them as our grantees last year. And this cycle, we have had 18 amazing nominees. 13 have earned their gold or silver candid seals of transparency, because part of our process is, again, capacity building, growing and strengthening our nonprofit ecosystem. We have 5 finalists, and they'll be invited or have been invited to participate in our decision day on November 4th, which our voting members will hear their pitches and choose the winners. We do education networking, including webinars like this, which are all free, complimentary. We have in-person events, primarily in SoCal, where I reside. Surprise, surprise. We also do networking, mentorship, and WhatsApp community for our members. And we also have a weekly curated newsletter of information from our members. We have upcoming programs include October 21st, we're having a Giving Circle nominee reunion. We have now close to 35 nominees from the past 4 cycles. We're bringing everybody together to network, learn together, meet one another, and really grow. When you meet and talk, as you know, you learn more and you can help each other out. And also discussing National Philanthropy Day Awards, which AMCF is hosting. November 3rd, we're having a virtual book club with Prosperity with Purpose. Rabata is actually the publisher of this book, so yay. So if you're here from Rabata, huge shout out. We've already done a talk with a virtual book signing, and now we're doing a book club, so yay. And then we're having our decision day for voting members on November 4th. It's open to all voting members, so if you're not a voting member, we encourage you to still join and determine who wins and receives funding. Here locally in Southern California, we're hosting in partnership with Muslim women professionals, a Muslim Women Wealth Summit. So if you're in the area or want to drive or you have relatives here, please let them know. We do have financial aid available, and we also will have ESL interpretation provided by Mohsen, so an honor. And save the date, November 12th, our next educational webinar. We're honored to be partnering with Philanthropy Together, talking about the power of giving circles with Ilyasa Shabazz, Madiha Patel, and Dima Abu Olaim, the founder of 200 Muslim Women Who Care. So truly an honor. So save the date for next month. On November 22nd, we'll be announcing the winners of AMCF's Muslim Philanthropy Day Awards. The awards are now open for nominations. You can nominate yourself, nominate peers, nominate your favorite organizations, 14 different categories, including schools, masajid, Islamic centers, nonprofits, young professionals, young Muslim, all sorts of categories. So help us uplift American Muslims. There's a QR code. There's a link. There's no fee for nominations. It takes maybe 5 to 7 minutes. So please go ahead and do that. And join us. Become a member of the Giving Circle. Amplify Muslim women leadership. Join by October 31st, and you're a voting member. You can join at any time and be a member at any time, but we'd love for you to join before this cycle closes. And now I'm the Giving Circle Manager at AMCF. My honor to host today. So that's a little bit about me. You can follow me on LinkedIn to learn more. And then our honor to have Shaykha Dr. Tamara Gray, the founder, president, and CEO of Rabata, here today in the room. Alhamdulillah. A little bit about Shaykha Dr. Tamara Gray. She's the founder, president, CEO of Rabata, an organization promoting positive cultural change and change through creative educational experiences and uplifting Muslim women. She holds a doctorate in leadership from the University of St. Thomas, mashallah, a master's in curriculum theory and instruction from Temple University, and spent 20 years studying Islamic sciences, Quran, and Arabic in Damascus, alhamdulillah. She is also an author and translator. Her works include Joy Jots, Project Lina, and a co-translation of Muqtasar al-Jamia fi as-Sira al-Nabawiyya. She serves as a senior fellow at Yaqeen Institute on the Fiqh Council of North America and chairs the Minnesota Multi-Faith Network, mashallah. And I'm sure there could be many more accolades, but she was limited to 120 words, so mashallah. And now we're shifting over to a decade of impact, the Rabata story and the power of Muslim women leading together. So I will stop sharing. You've seen enough from me, and I will turn it over to Shaykha Tamara Gray.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you everyone for joining us today. This is a very fun topic for me to talk about. So I feel blessed to be here and to be invited to talk about Rabata, about social impact, and about my own thoughts around the Muslim community and nonprofit and what we need. So first, I want to talk about my own experience in opening and building Rabata. We're at the 10-year anniversary right now. And what that means is that 10 years ago, we got our 501c3. But actually, 2 years before that, so in 2013 or 2012 is when the story of Rabata actually begins. And I'm not going to focus on some of those pieces of the story because I want to focus on the nonprofit pieces. But I will say that I'm from Minnesota. I was telling Lisa earlier that I'm from Minnesota. I was raised in, the snow capital of the United States, where we have lots of snow in the winter, warm summers, all of the seasons. And then I lived in Damascus for 20 years. And when the war started, I came back to America and I really didn't know what I was going to do. I was in schools and I thought, oh, I'm going to do schools. And then I did a tour across the United States and I did 69 talks in 1 month where I met Muslim women all over North America. And from those listening conversations, Rabata was born. In other words, I suddenly had this, or maybe not suddenly is the wrong word, but I had a vision of what we need as an ummah. And so Rabata then, as an organization, as a 501c3, the idea of it was born, and we didn't actually get our 501c3. We didn't formalize until 2015. Now, for me, I am educated in education. I studied in Syria Islamic studies. So I had this really rich background in the subject matter that I wanted to teach through Rabata. Like I really believe in the mission of Rabata, which is the positive cultural change within community. And all research in anthropology, sociology, religious studies demonstrates that it's women who change culture. So I'm attached to it. I love it. I believe in it. I'm very mission oriented. So all that stuff is important for nonprofit, of course. But the other piece of that was, my challenge there was I was not a business person. I didn't know anything about running a business. I knew about running a school. I was really good at running a school. I knew how to handle the teachers and the students and everybody. But so I have a funny story about that. In about the second year, 2014, I think it was, before we're nonprofit, so maybe it was 2015. In all cases, 2015, because we would have been official now. I decided that we needed to have a space to house the books that we were publishing, as well as to gather women here in Minnesota. So my broker was my dad's friend. So, what a blessing. Lesson number one, you understand your connections and your network. So my father brought in his friend. My father's not Muslim, his friend's not Muslim, but he has been a huge support for us from that day, really. Anyway, I asked him to be able to go and see a space. So we went to see this space, and on the way there, he's like, do you have long records of bank accounts? What are you going to show them? And I'm like, sure. But in my head, I'm like, oh. So we met the landlord of this place. He was 92 years old, and his name was Eugene Sitzman. God bless him. He's passed now, 92 years old. And I stood outside that beautiful space. It was a lovely space. And he looked at me. Of course, there I am, and the way you all know I dress. And he's 92-year-old Minnesota guy. And he's looking at me up and down. And I think I'm getting a little Islamophobia vibe here, like he's looking me up and down, up and down. But nope, it was not an Islamophobia vibe. 92-year-old Eugene Sitzman was trying to decide if I looked like an entrepreneur, because he said, okay, you look like an entrepreneur. And with that, he was willing to sign our first lease. SubhanAllah. So the tawfiq of finding the right people as well. So that was our first lease with Eugene Sitzman. It was in a really good part of town. I think location is everything. But my story here isn't so much about location. It's about how do we grow? How do we develop? How do we move in 10 years from a startup to what I would say an organization building to being where we are now, which is we are attempting to grow into a legacy organization. And Tayyib Yunus, he talks about that 95% of Muslim organizations will not leave the startup stage. For me, that's a scary statistic, that as an ummah we need to be thinking about. We need to be training nonprofit, which you guys are doing, Lisa, you and AMCF. Like, it's awesome what you're doing, because it's so important to train the world of leadership, because we cannot accept this. It cannot be acceptable to us that 95% of our nonprofits will never leave the startup stage. Now, we were in startup stage, and in COVID, that's when we switched to the building stage. At a time when people were really thinking, oh, there's a, what are we going to do? They were panicking. What are we going to do next? We were set up because we're already an online institute. We already had online classes, and a lot of our work was online. We were ready to embrace the conditions as they were. And so we did. And that's where we expanded into an online masjid. We expanded our academic institute. We expanded our space. Believe it or not, in 2020, we moved from our previous space to a new space, which is in a suburb here in Minnesota, which at that time was 3 times larger than our previous place, but cheaper because we were downtown and now we're in the suburbs. So we expanded. We did a lot during COVID. I was able to get a good deal on it because of COVID. So again, there's the world of being strategic, very strategic in our thinking. You mentioned Noshina earlier, Lisa, and Noshina is an author for us, Prosperity and Purpose. She's getting her PhD at Lilly School of Philanthropy at University of Indiana. She is going to be a mover and shaker in the finance world for Muslim women. I'm sure of it. And we've worked together in a number of different things. And yesterday we were talking about the problem of institutions that cannot get out of startup stage. And we were talking about what our next steps are at Rabata as well. And she was saying, the big difference is in the ability to think strategically. If we can't think strategically and then plan and then put those steps into place. So, I mean, I'm speaking to the choir here, but I want to mention what is unique about Rabata, the whole idea of we are a by women, for women organization. And what that has meant for us is that every single staff member, every single instructor, and 99% of participants, and I say 99% because we've had a few events that have been open to mixed audiences. We did a Train the Imam event, for example, and we've done things like this where we want to affect the male audience as well. But in general, we are a by women, for women organization. And this has been, I don't know how to express what a blessing it has been for us. It has been the ability to uplift women. So one thing that means is that we provide salaries for over 30 women. We have over 30 employees, of whom they're all women. That's the monthly. We have over 100 if we include instructors. So those are just our staff members. Monthly, giving out salaries to 30 women who, much of it is remote work. They can be home. Even if they're here coming in, it's a mission-driven organization. So they get to do the work and we're there with women who understand their life. So let me give you an example. I'm a full focus pro. I went and got a certificate in Michael Hyatt's whole system of focus and planning and goal setting and reaching goals and all of this. And one of the things that they talked about during that time was this idea of as you set goals for what the one I was going to tell you about employees. They talk about goals. I'll talk about that in a minute. But one of the things they talked about is that they have a lot of female employees in their organization, and they discovered that the reason they're losing employees, really valuable employees sometimes, is because of school pickup. Isn't that amazing? Like, just thinking about that one thing, being able to think about the one thing. And so they changed their work hours. And they said, you can all leave at school pickup time. And just the KPIs didn't change. So that meant that people couldn't waste time at work. KPIs stayed the same. And some of them continued to work at home a little bit when they had to. But for them, everyone got to leave at school pickup time. And for us, I heard that and I was like, yeah, we do the same thing. We've recognized that amongst our employees, there are a lot of women who have school pickup. And so we don't hold meetings during that time. Not meetings where we want someone to be present, really present, because otherwise they're in the car. That's dangerous. We don't hold meetings at that time. For those who have the school pickup, we're really flexible about work hours. People can start work when they want to. We have flex time in general, but yet we're organized about it. It's not like anything goes whenever you want to work. Like there's a seriousness, obviously, and a schedule that people follow. But that benefit of being by women for women, I think has led. I think it's been part of the reason that we were able to grow. So I was telling you about building. So during COVID, we moved from startup to a building organization. And the way that happened is we suddenly had an increase in students. And when that happened, we also then began to hire more staff. So I'm not, I'd have to think about theoretically if this matches the theory. I believe it does. But the idea is that the nonprofit has to know when it needs to hire staff. And the nonprofit has to have a strong volunteer base so that both are moving forward. I once, in the early days of Rabata, I met up with a businessman, very successful businessman, who had started a business from nothing and then sold it for over $15 million. And I asked him for advice, and he said to me, the most important advice I can give you is don't do what you're not the best at. Mind blowing. So he said, hire people to do the stuff you're not the best at. And then he told me that he hired someone to do all the admin work for that $15 million company in the early days and paid her more than he paid himself because he knew if he gave himself time for the creative work, the organization would take off. So I really tried to follow that rule throughout our early years, even until now. I've done my best to, even if it doesn't fit into typical standards of job descriptions. We, for example, at Rabata, I've been the ED. We changed my title because our big thing coming up is we're opening up a university. And so we changed my job title to president CEO so that it fits where we sit in the budget in nonprofit and also in the work that we're doing. But before that even changed, I was really concerned about making sure. No, I understood I couldn't do all of what is typically for an ED at the level we were at in that building stage and for sure in our legacy stage. So we hired two different directors. One is a director of culture and compliance, doing those things that an ED might do in follow-up and compliance with the law and auditing and all of that kind of stuff. And then also a director of strategic growth so that I get to stay focused where I'm best at in the teaching, the thinking, the strategic thinking about the organization. But strategic growth is the outward facing. How are we making it happen? Oh, and by the way, if you have questions about what I'm talking about or anything, feel free to put them in the chat and I'm happy to jump into them. Lisa mentioned earlier that was okay. So we can do that. Otherwise, I could also leave time at the end. But it's easier if you start by sending questions because then it's just easier to manage. Yes, exactly. So Ikram is sharing with us in the chat box. That was the training that we did. So we collaborate a lot. So we collaborated with Maristan, and it was a suicide response certificate training and raising children for imams. And then we also did raising children under the shade of the Quran as a mixed gathering so that we could make sure that the fathers also understood how to bring Quran into that story. Thanks, Ikram. All right, so I was talking here about our growth and how we managed that. In the middle stage of our growth, no, in the early stage, the builder stage, I strategically had intentions to grow. So that's the other thing, that we need to make sure that our nonprofit organizations have intention to grow. So in 2015, the Rabata board made an intention that by 2025 we would open a university. And la ilaha illallah, like the classes will be open in 2026, but in this month of, not this month, next month of November, we are opening our early admissions. So we've made that goal. I feel excited about that, and also, I mean, very grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's really important that everyone in their nonprofit world is setting strategy and then doing their best to stick to it, even when staff members or the world, COVID, for example, or um, uh, other life things come to try to take us off. Shaitan, we could say, even come to try to take us off the path, but we would need to be really solid. And yes, Hira, our university will be a number of online degrees. We're already offering ijazas, so now we'll continue to offer those. And we'll be adding to we have certificates, we'll be adding to that a couple of associate degrees, 7 majors under the Bachelor of Arts, graduate certificate, and some baccalaureate certificates, as well as an MTS, Masters of Theological Studies, and a Doctor of Theology. So whew, that's a lot, right? That's a lot. So in those early years when I was working on the building of this organization, I went back and got my doctorate in leadership with the mind to the future that we will be growing. Right now, we're trying to move from an organization that has expanded, a middle size. We're trying to move into a larger organization, a university. Like, that's a big deal. That's a lot. That's a big thing. And so we've also sent our staff members back to study at university to get degrees that will be able to support that work. So I'm mentioning that because I want us to be working in the community and training our nonprofit leaders to be thinking about, what will I need in the future? And then setting up the steps to reach that point. Now, in those growth stages, I'll tell you a couple of pitfalls that I've seen and that I would love to just shout from the rooftops to tell all other nonprofits, and especially those run by women, not to fall into it. And actually, part of what I'm gonna share with you now is a light bulb moment that I had last night. So you're getting it fresh off the brain presses. The first part is something that I've already been thinking about. I'll tell you when we get to the brain presses. But the first part is, and this is I don't know if we can say this is something, I don't think this is unique to women's organizations, but I do think this is unique to nonprofit organizations. And that is getting into the space where you start to act like a charity for your employees. That is a dangerous pitfall. What do I mean? I mean, we hire employees just like businesses do, and maybe the employee isn't living up to their KPIs, isn't living up to what their job description is, isn't living up to what you thought they would be able to do. But we have a relationship now. We're on a mission together. We're walking together in this work, and it becomes very difficult to fire or reduce or remove, or even just put them on a performance improvement plan or anything like this. And this is a serious pitfall, because what happens then is we are paying someone from an Islamic thinking side. Someone is earning mal haram from us because they're not doing the work, but we're paying them. And on the other side, we're paying them, but we're not getting the work. And so now we have to hire someone else. So now we're paying 2 salaries for that original salary. And this is perhaps, yes, it's faith-based for-profits too. Oh, interesting. We confuse ihsan with excellence in work. Very interesting. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. And so this concept of oh, I can't fire them. What's going to happen? That we have to get away from this as nonprofits. And the light bulb moment I had yesterday, I've been working with my team this year around a concept that comes out of Australia, which calls upon everyone in the work world to get out of bed, to get out of bed. And what that means is to work in such a way that we have no blame, excuses, or denial for work that doesn't get done or what have you. So getting out of bed means we no longer blame others for our work that's not done. We no longer make excuses, and we don't deny that it's an actual problem. And so that's great. And we've been working on it, and it's been going really well at Rabata to make sure that we are all on the same page and no one is making excuses for the work that they're not getting done or deadlines that are missed or whatever. And everyone is owning and accountable for their work. But my big brainwave yesterday, because I'll tell you about myself, I'll share a little bit about me personally here, which is that I don't fall into bed a lot about my own work. It's much easier for me to blame myself. It's to recognize when I'm making mistakes if I didn't put the effort in. I don't usually make excuses, and I hold myself accountable quite harshly. And so I wasn't thinking of myself being in bed, but I realized yesterday that as the boss, when I make excuses for staff or volunteers, if I make excuses and therefore I can't ask them to leave or change or anything because I'm making excuses for them, I'm in bed. I'm still making excuses. And that was a huge awareness for me last night. I was like, whoa. Because sometimes another thing I do, big mistake, is I swoop in to take care of the work. And here I am. This is like I'm quite vulnerably sharing with you some of the places that I've had to work on. But I think we all, as leaders in the field, leaders of any type of work, I guess, we need to be aware of not being in that space of not allowing anyone to be casting blame, making excuses or denial around work, but also we as the leaders need to make sure we're not in bed by making excuses for them. And I don't mean not to have compassion. We get to have compassion for people. If someone is ill or has a life issue, certainly we need to have compassion for them, but we also have to insist that work gets done. And Lisa, you're asking how to balance empathy with work expectations. This is you're asking me exactly in the struggle that I'm in. So I will share with you where I am now, okay? And maybe we can circle back in a few months and see how I'm doing. The place is what I ask myself now is I do a visual exercise and I try to put all of my stakeholders, so the donors, the students, the teachers, all the stakeholders that Rabata is trying to serve, and I stand them right behind me so they can watch the decision I'm about to make. I mean, of course, this is metaphorically. I don't actually stand them there, but metaphorically, I stand them so that as I'm making a decision about this employee, if I am saying to myself, oh, it's okay, even if she's not really getting work done, she's going through a hard time, how do they feel about that? If they feel cheated, then I'm making a mistake. And I need to make a decision now. That decision, depending on the empathy, could be you need some time off. I need you to take time off, settle your situation, and come back and be ready to work. Or that could be, listen, I want you to, these are your KPIs. I can see that your schedule at home right now, because maybe you're taking care of your elderly parents or whatever, is a little confusing. Here's your KPIs. Let me know your hours of work, and you can do that out of a 7-day week if you want to, so that it's a full-time job, but it's spilling into the weekend. I can have conversations with employees to make sure that the work is getting done and still be compassionate and empathetic for their life situation. But it's also more compassionate, perhaps, and more empathetic to let them go and find a job that is more part of their own, of what they can do. Maybe they just can't do it right now, and it's better to let them go and be able to move forward to another job. And Hira's asking, getting work done seems easy from employees, but how to get work done from volunteers when we already feel obliged? Great question. So let's move into that space. So we have different levels of volunteering here at Rabata. We have lead volunteers, and lead volunteers are managed something like a major donor, meaning that they get, I mean, I don't know what to call them, perks or a certain, the interaction with them is at a higher level. And so we have that. And then we have the volunteer that comes on for a project. And I'll tell you something. One tip with volunteers is not to have too many long-term volunteers, but to have volunteers come in for a project that has a beginning and an end. Because a volunteer is excited. Oh yeah, I want to do this. I want to do this thing. And so you give them that thing and they do it. But if then they're just sort of dragging out without clarity, they might not feel like a volunteer anymore. And so it's hard to bring them in. So that's how we manage to keep our volunteers coming in and out. We do have a pool of long-term volunteers with larger responsibilities. And for them, the connection there is very mission driven. And we always are looking to them and saying, when we have budget, we will try to hire for that position. Usually the person who's been in that volunteer position then becomes the staff member. Once in a while, it doesn't work like that, either because the person in the volunteer position is not, she doesn't want to be a staff person. She has another job that she cares about and she doesn't want to leave it. So then it would be moved to someone else. Ownership of micro goals so that the same large project can also volunteers stay accountable. Exactly. That's actually the idea, that when we have little tiny things to give people, then they're getting it done, they're staying excited. So you can give them something else and they can be excited about that. Or they can say, yeah, I'm not going to do it right now, but I'll be back. Like, I'm not leaving you. This is just a difficult month or what have you. So that's really worked well. That's really worked well for us. But yeah, so that is a big I guess what pitfall, like to share with you a place to really identify. Don't allow your organization to become a charity for the staff members. That's not where it's intended. It's intended to be a nonprofit for the mission. And staff members are meant to be doing the work. And if they have a reason that they can't, they can be moved to another job. We can't be shy to have to do that. They can move to another job, or maybe it's time to let them go and let someone else fill that place. It's okay. It's not the work is not the be all end all of their life, and their work is not the be all. Everyone is replaceable. And even for us as leaders, like myself, I know about myself, I am replaceable. And if I ever think I'm not replaceable, I do two things. One, have a big serious conversation with myself about how everyone is replaceable. And second, I look to prepare someone to replace me. So, because we, especially as leaders, we want to make sure that if tomorrow, God forbid, may Allah make all of our lives long in health and forgiveness and obedience to Allah, but we never know. So we have to be leaving people, we have to be training people in the organization who will be able to step into our shoes. And if we don't have that, then we need to hire someone who's going to be able to step into our shoes. Another thing that I thought I would share with you is just thinking about the future. I mentioned that the big job that we're doing now, which is opening a university. And I did say to you already that we were thinking about that in 2015. But if I can talk about it with you as far as what did that look like to try to make that decision and then move forward to make it something that really addresses the stakeholders we already have, even as we think about expanding our stakeholders. And that I can share with you a little story. So we started out originally in 2017 building a master's program. That was the beginning, to start with a master's program. By the way, it's much easier to build a master's program than a bachelor's, because a bachelor's has core competencies. It's much more difficult, it's much more extensive, etc. And so that's where we started. But then as I was looking at the Muslim community, I saw, well, there's a number of organizations that are opening master's programs. What does the community need? And that, I just want to pause for a moment, because I know I have a tendency to speak quickly. So I want to underline that sentence. What does our community need? That is the question that every nonprofit needs to be answering. And I recognized here in Minnesota, Minnesota is a very left-wing blue state. Even so, it has a strong Christian population. So it's an interesting state. And what I saw is that Christian colleges were expanding. Seminaries are closing, Christian colleges are expanding. So I did a lot of research about that and trying to uncover what that meant. And my conclusion was that the Christian community, having had a long experience in the history of America, was better at preventing fires instead of having to put them out than we are. So we as Muslims have a tendency to wait until a fire is raging, and then we're like, oh my God, we got to put this out, we got to manage it, we got to this, we got to that. But I wanted to help us cultural change, right? So we need to get to a place where we're not putting fires out, we're preventing them. And so why then are Christian colleges, their seminaries are closing, but their Christian colleges are expanding? What's going on? And I realized it's because in the Christian community, they want to build an opportunity for their young people to go to college without being heavily influenced by the academic left. And the academic life left, especially in this case, we mean secularism and lifestyle pressure for lifestyle changes and things like this. And so I started thinking about that and thinking about our homeschooled kids that we're so careful with, and what happens to them when they go to college. What happens to them? How many of our community are we losing to the academic left and lifestyle pressures? And so that was the beginning, that was the seed of thinking, you know what, maybe we need to move into the bachelor's area. Also, by the way, fun fact that I just recently heard, I didn't double check it, but I heard it came from ISPU, is that while 41% of Americans have a college degree, only 15% of converts have a college degree. And with 15% of converts having a college degree and 70% of converts leaving Islam within their Muslim lifetime, that means that perhaps we can solve for this 70% by increasing the 15%. So the decision to go into the bachelor's degree was made based on that kind of data and that kind of research and that kind of strategic thinking about how we're going to impact the community. And then, of course, the reason we have the MTS and the THD, two reasons. One is that as an organization, we've had a scholar's certificate since day one. Our vision is a rising tide of Muslim women who are influencing and impacting Muslim communities everywhere we are. A rising tide, like you can't push it back. And part of that was the idea that I wanted communities to hire female scholars just like they hire imams. And to do that, we wanted to flood the community, flood the employee, the pool of possible candidates. And so we started a scholar's certificate. But I've recognized in the last years that in the United States, around the world, we might say that in order to be respected, women need the DR degree. Like we need to have a doctorate, a master's degree. We need recognized degrees in order to garner the authority that is the goal. And so all I've done is adjusted the scholar certification into an MTS and a THD. So I am saying THD, I'm not saying PhD. And that's because in the world of doctorates, we've got the Doctorate of Divinity. That's an honorary degree that Christian colleges give. Doctorate of Ministry, also very Christian and really focused on being a minister. The PhD, which is the secular degree, PhD in religious studies, is an academic degree, but it's secular. And the THD, which is offered at Duke and then some other lesser known universities, is for the believing academic, the practitioner of their faith who also wants to be academic. So that's perfect. That's what we want. We want our graduates, we want people to know that our graduates are practitioners of the faith as well as academically qualified to teach and uphold and uplift the faith in all the different local and digital communities around the world. Inshallah. So that's what we've been doing. What is the acronym for the Muslim theological degree? We've got MTS is Masters of Theological Studies. And then we have THD is the Doctorate of Theology. So instead of PhD, it's THD. It sounds the same. And it's still Dr. So-and-so, right? It's still the same. You have the same title, but it's just the focus is the understanding is that it is a believer. And that was really important to me as I built this degree, because the communities don't want to hire someone who has a PhD if they're not a practitioner in the community. The whole point is, how am I uplifting community? So, and so I think at 15 minutes, I'd like to open the floor for questions. I see here saying is doing PhD from Islamic Institute secular as well. It's assumed that it is secular, Hira. Yeah, so the assumption is if it's a PhD, that it is a secular degree. Let me just say it like this. There's no assumption that you're a believer. So that would be a question, I guess, if that's clear. Yeah. Are there any other questions that anybody has that I can just answer?
And feel free to unmute. Everybody's here, they're being very quiet in the background, but please feel free to unmute. You can put in the chat, but nice to hear everybody's voice. Unmute yourself, turn on your video. Not just me and Shaykha Tamara talking all the time.
Thank you, Sirhani. Do you have any questions to make it more insightful?
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
I attended the business event from Arvine Farah Khan. She is having a 5-week programs. And then the lady came and she was talking about the tax, how to file when you have a business and this and that. And she was telling me if somebody new wanted to open a nonprofit, don't do it. Just start it without nonprofit, your business, then convert it. So, and I already have a business for 20 years and I wanted to open a nonprofit to support, to help women over here and support in Pakistan. So how should I do that? Now I'm a double-minded.
Okay. So first of all, Noshina Hussein she has a little workbook. I'm going to put the link in the chat. She has a workbook that you go through it to answer those questions to see if you're ready to do a nonprofit. So first thing I want to do is recommend her workbook.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I want to say is that the only real difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit is what you do with revenue. So in a for-profit, revenue becomes obviously profit that you give out either to investors or to the owner. In a nonprofit, the revenue comes back into the projects to develop the projects and maybe create an endowment for legacy building. That's the only real difference. And I think it's important for me to say that a lot, because a lot of times people don't think of they think of them as very, very different. They're actually not that different. You still have to have business practices in a nonprofit. So if you're already a business owner, that means you have the experience you need to run a business. You probably would do just fine with a nonprofit. And the benefit of a nonprofit then in America is you're not having to do taxes. However, you do have to report a lot more to the government on what you're doing.
Yes, that's the thing she was talking about as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, because my sister opened a nonprofit in Texas. She opened a school in Pakistan. And then we are all supporting her to run that school. But I wanted to do something here as well.
Yeah.
Especially for our Muslim community.
Yeah. I mean, again, you just have to, I suggest you look at that workbook.
I will do
It's
that.
going to
Yeah.
help you
Please, thank you.
clarify. It's in the chat. Yeah.
And just a suggestion, if you're doing something international, just make sure you're doing everything in compliance with the US government. There's,
Yes.
especially with the current administration, there's a lot of things you cannot do. So just be very careful.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Sending
another
any
thing.
money overseas.
Yes, that's another thing. But they're doing all by the laws.
Yeah.
Following
The
the law.
laws change, so you just had, that's just only just be very careful.
Yes, yeah. Oh, I agreed. Yeah, too much going on. Yep. Thank you
Alright.
so much.
Of course. Yes. And then Sabiha, you asked what age would you have to be to join the bachelor's and what qualifications? So actually any age, you'd have to be at least, you have to have a high school degree, at least a high school degree. And there's an admissions process. We are aware of the programs across the country that allow for homeschooling kids or high school kids to take college credit, but we will not be able to offer that until we are accredited. And the process of accreditation means we've got to open and start before we can apply for accreditation. So we're aware of those programs and we're planning to offer them at the time that we can do it according to accreditation and other legal issues. So we won't, so we can't accept someone without a high school diploma. However, we are planning, and the next year, by the following year, inshallah, we should have what we're calling a bridging program open, which will help for anyone who doesn't have a high school diploma, get a GED so that they can be bridged into that bachelor's program. I hope I answered your question. Amin?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Sorry, I wasn't aware this was an organization for sisters. I'm actually, just to kind of give you a little bit about my background, I'm a physician. I'm from the Seattle area, and I'm actually interested in, I'm interested in creating a foundation. And I kind of came across the websites of American Muslim Community Foundation and wanted to talk to the folks over there. Basically, I think maybe I have a couple of important proposals that I've been talking to the Muslim leadership of different organizations such as CARE and NAIF and MUNA and so forth. But I think those are kind of extensive, a little more extensive conversation. Would it be, I don't want to disrupt like kind of the topic here. So I'm just wondering, would it be possible to connect with you guys offline or, after the call or after the Zoom is over to kind of discuss some of that, and maybe you can advise me and see how I can proceed with my ideas.
So brother, I mean, I put my email in the chat. If you can email me, and then I can, based on what you need, can maybe forward it to one of the people in our leadership.
Okay, that sounds good,
Yeah.
inshallah. I'll can you just put your, oh, it's in the chat. Okay, let me just get that, and perfect. I'll email you, inshallah.
Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Hira has arranged.
Oh, Hira. Yes.
Yes, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Jazakillah khair for your insights, Dr. Tamara. Actually, your session came right in time because this is the first time I'm listening about PhD. I was about to start my PhD next year from Australia. If you know that ISRA Academy, they administer a degree. So
Know them well. They're awesome.
But if you are offering from your university and if PhD is.
Oops, we're losing you.
Yes.
There you are.
You're kind of going in and out, Hira.
So what do you advise? My master's from ISRA and from shall I switch the institute? Switch off my video.
Yeah, I think what I would advise you is to just go. Wait,
I was asking that I'm really sorry. I think my internet is
that's okay.
acting
I
up.
think I got the question.
I was asking.
I think I got it. Like, what's
Okay.
my advice between the PhD at Charles Stewart and our THD? So I know Israel very well, and I respect them very much. And Israel has a very nice collaborative agreement with Charles Stewart University. So it would be an accredited degree in Australia, which should be fine for here as well. And I'm actually invited by Isra to Australia next month, so I'm excited to be working with them. As far as the RTHD, it will not start. I mean, you can look at the program. You'll be able to look at the program online starting in November, end of November. And so you'll be able to really see the program. I actually suggest you compare the programs, see what feels right, pray istikhara, and yeah, and inshallah, I see us as working together in the future as well. So, but definitely, I love our program. It's my program, but I think you should look at what your needs are and compare the programs when ours is published.
Actually, I reached ISRA because of you. I heard your podcast with Dr. Sulaiman. It's always with me. It's always open in front of me. I have a deep interest in Sira. So I heard one of your podcast with Dr. Sulaiman, and then I found out about their degree. And I had a completely different background. I'm an accountant, a cost and management accountant, and then I returned to academia because of Sira. So I'm not. I want to do something in Sira, but I know Isra because of you, because I have been reading you for like I read this book every day. It's always open on my desk. So I think I will check out.
Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair for such a great book.
Alhamdulillah.
Right. Any final questions or thoughts anybody would like to share? There's some people we haven't heard from you or shared, so if you want to have any final comments before we close out. I don't know anybody I know several people here from Rabata, if anybody wants to chime in, and any feedback for our sister Tamara, Dr. Shaykha Tamara?
Yeah, mashallah, we have a couple of people here who are volunteers, and some who are volunteers who stepped away, and some employees here. We have our chair of the board here as well. Admissions will open the big splash of admissions will open in January. We will have a quiet opening around November. I think it's in the middle of November. And so if you're checking the website, you would see that. You will be able to, that's called early admissions. And that actually it's quiet because we want to make sure that it's the first time to open that kind of admissions and applications. So we want to make sure that any kinks in it, any issues, we can get them ironed out right away.
Do you have a web page or a waiting list?
Rabata.org, and then if you just play around over there, you'll see the different places, the different projects, including the university. And Hira, so also, go to Rabata.org and look for the university there. And maybe Iman, I don't know if Iman is still here, if she's sitting, maybe she has the direct one. She can give it to you, but otherwise you'll find it. If you have the direct link, you could give it to us. That'd be awesome, Iman. Yeah.
Or if there's a waiting list, perhaps, that people that are interested, they could like just sign up.
Oh yeah, we have
yeah. So I'm gonna put the link in here it is. Hazel put it in. Thank you so much,
Thank you, Hazel.
On there's something called an interest form, so you can fill out that form, and that way you'll be on the radar of the admissions team, and inshallah they will reach out to you. So on this page, academy.rabata.org/university, and then fill out the interest form.
I knew you guys had something like that, so.
Yep. Yeah, so interest form. Yep, very good. Then you'll get all the info.
All right. Well, thank you everybody so much. I don't know if you have a closing dua or anything, Shaykha Tamara.
My favorite dua is Allahumma ehdina wa ehdi bina al-ibad al-bilad. Ya Allah, guide us and guide through us lands and people. Ameen.
Ameen. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. It was a pleasure.